Trader Emergency Conclave, or TEC, are one of the most approachable factions in Sins of a Solar Empire 2. Their straightforward playstyle and customizable, bustling economy makes them one of the easiest factions to pick up and play in the game, but there's still room for clarification, so let's go through and find out everything there is to know to get you started. But first, check out channel partner Holy Energy. As a professional gamer, I know that gaming is tiring work, and that's why it's important to stay alert with Holy Energy. Their slow release caffeine formula provides you with sustained energy throughout the day, rather than the instant anxiety and heart palpitations of traditional energy drinks. All of their delicious natural flavors are also sugar, taurine, and BS free, so you can stay energized with a clear conscience. Check out Holy at the link below and use code Colonel5 for £5 off your first order and code Colonel for 10% off any order. Thank you to Holy for partnering with the channel, and now onto the content. So first of all, let's start with some shared mechanics. Both TEC factions share just the one: trade. You can increase your capacity for trade with trade port orbital structures, planet items, and certain capital ship skills. Once you have capacity, you can allocate trade among the three primary resources in-game: credits, metals, and crystals. Doing this simply increases your income of the selected resources, allowing you to bring in more of something you're running low on. In my opinion, their credit income is balanced around this, so credits are normally the best pick, especially early on, but you can totally customize it to your needs. Whilst I wouldn't advise building trade ports in every single planet, once you've built asteroid miners and any research or factories, plopping a few of them down across the map will never be a bad idea. You can very quickly snowball your economy to unstoppable levels. Just make sure you defend your trading systems, as losing a port can also mean taking a huge chunk out of your income. Both TEC factions also share a roster of ships, each with their own purpose. The Prova Scout Corvette is their scouting ship used for exploration. Just the same as scout ships from any other faction, leave them on auto-explore and they'll uncover the map for you in no time. Just keep an eye on how many you have and queue up a few more if you notice they've been wiped out before they can clear the map. It's not even a bad idea to have a few of them super late into the game, since they'll continually roam around and give you updated intel. The Shuriken Gunship Corvette is the one and only Corvette of the TEC, and they're pretty much what you'd expect. They're fast and deal light damage, making them excellent versus weaker targets with slower moving weapons. Their high speed makes them hard to take down for most ships. Just be aware of those with plenty of light weaponry, as they can be taken out in moments by the right enemy. They're still a great pickup for the early game to clear out defending fleets, and will do a decent job taking out lighter frigates later into the game, but I wouldn't worry if you don't have a million of them in your late game fleets. The Cobalt Light frigates are your starting frigate, so no surprise, it's exceptionally standard. It comes with one medium autocannon, making it a good all-round ship for going up against pretty much anything in the early game. The damage won't be out of this world, but it's consistent and will do well versus pretty much everything above strikecraft and below capital ships. Toughness wise, it's more of the same. It will do okay against most things, but be prepared to be building lots of these, as you're very likely to lose a few of them over the course of the game. Whilst you can replace them later with more specialized ships, they're never bad to bring in fleets since they're decent at pretty much everything, so come with minimal downsides. The Protev Colony Frigate, just like all other colony ships, has no weapons or real defenses, so keep it well clear of any and all combat or danger. Use it to colonize planets after they've been cleared of hostiles, and it should do just fine. The Krosov Siege Frigate is their planetary assault frigate, and as such can exclusively attack planets. It has no weaponry to deal with enemy ships, so sending it in as part of a coordinated assault is essential to it not only being able to deal damage, but survive in the first place. As with all factions, you can either have these in your normal fleets, and once they arrive at hostile planets, they'll begin attacking it whilst the rest of your army deals with any ships or other orbital threats. Or you can have them in a separate fleet following your main one and bring them in once the coast is clear for risk-free planetary bombing. The former is a little riskier, but allows them to start whittling down the planet from the get-go, whereas the latter is practically risk-free but does slow down your progress significantly, especially on tougher planets. Either way, bringing a small number of them once you start assaulting enemy worlds will be essential to rapid taking of territory. The Garda Flak frigates are extremely specialized frigates that excel in taking out enemy missiles and strikecraft almost exclusively. They have 4 rapid-firing autocannons that make shooting missiles and smaller fighters out of the sky into a breeze, but against practically anything else they're essentially useless. The damage will not punch through even most frigates' defenses, so having them as part of a mixed fleet is essential for their survival. Bringing a few of these from the early to mid game onwards will be a great idea, as you will only encounter more strikecraft and missiles as you take on hostile capital ships and planets. The Caleb Gauss frigates are on the total opposite side of the spectrum. These ships are exclusively useful against larger threats, like capital ships and structures. Basically anything that doesn't move that fast and has a lot of armor to chip through. Their slow-firing Gauss cannons deal devastating damage against anything. But against anything faster moving, they simply don't have the tracking or firing speed to deal reliable damage. Very similar to the flak frigates, you want to bring a few of these from the early to mid game onwards, as you'll only encounter more stationary defenses and larger ships as the game goes on. Whilst you can mostly replace them in the later game with larger ships of your own, They're never a bad pickup, as this much damage in a small package makes them a sleeper carrier in large-scale battles. The Percheron Carrier Cruiser is the first of the cruisers, and this one is all about strikecraft. It has no weapons of its own but can support 2 squads at once, making them great for helping thin out the herd of lighter ships and keep enemy strikecraft busy. These aren't really a cruiser you want to bring lots of, especially since some capital ships can do its job whilst also having weapons of their own, but early on, they're great for getting your first few strikecraft and are extremely low maintenance once they're in your fleets. I'd say a handful at most, and don't be afraid to phase them out later if you can get a carrier capital ship, as they really will do the same job but a lot better. The Hashiko Robotics Cruiser is pretty much exclusively a support ship. It fields a number of robots that can repair nearby allied ships, as well as restore their antimatter. Similar to the carriers, they're useful to have a couple of, but I wouldn't bring loads of them since they are pretty much just exclusively support ships. The healing is nice, and once you unlock it, the antimatter is also very useful, but you don't need 10 or even 20 of them. 4 or 5 in a good sized fleet will do just fine. The Javelis LRM Cruiser is a bit of a glass cannon, and you can tell pretty much from looking at it. They come with medium missile batteries that deal devastating damage from a huge range. They're most effective against larger ships and structures and work best in larger numbers. A single ship's missiles can be easily countered by personal defense autocannons that most capital ships come with, so overwhelming them with heaps of firepower is a good way to ensure some of their damage punches through. Now, the glass part of this cannon is their health and armor. They're just not all that tough and can go down to a few frigates in moments if they get engaged. Their damage can devastate frigates, but even so, they're extremely vulnerable to pretty much everything, so keeping them well back and firing is the way to go to get lots of value with minimal risk. I won't be afraid to bring a good number of these to overwhelm enemy missile defense and deal some massive damage to those larger targets. The Harker Heavy Cruiser are really powerful all-round battleships. They're very tough and can withstand assaults from capital ships for a decent chunk of time, which is no mean feat. They also come with 5 heavy autocannons, making them able to attack units of almost all sizes in any direction and deal a lot of damage when they do. They tend to struggle against the extremes of both small and large ships, but anything in between and they'll do some great work. Similar to the Javelis, feel free to bring plenty of these, as their toughness and firepower makes them great frontlines fighters that can take on almost anything. As long as you have other ships to cover those extremes, this thing can take on most things in the middle. Where the Javelis was the glass cannon, the Ogrov Torpedo Cruiser are just actual cannons. They're extremely slow moving but carry with them exceptionally high damage torpedoes, which can devastate star bases and other stationary targets in just a few shots. If they land hits, not much can stand up to a few volleys no matter how thick their armor. Of course, they're basically worthless against literally anything else, so they do need a bit of an escort when dealing this damage, but if they can be left alone to do their work, you'll see some truly devastating results. I would say to bring a handful or 2 of these. You want their high damage to quickly take out defenses, yes, but most of the time you'll be fighting other enemy types, so it's best to be more prepared for that. Moving over to the capital ships, first up we have the Col Battleship, and as the name suggests, this is the pure battleship of the capital ship lineup. It comes with weapons large and small to take on basically all enemy types, making it a great all-rounder for leading your fleets, especially in the early game. The Gauss cannon is strong versus larger threats, and the auto cannons can take on most smaller threats, no problem. The only real weakness is not much defense against missiles and strikecraft, but frigates can cover that no problem. The abilities allow it to deal massive damage to a single target over time, increase its fire rate for a short time, reduce damage took and block missiles, and massively buff everything else for a short time. Akan battle cruisers are the colonizing capital ships of the TEC, and as such will normally be your go-to in the early game for your first fleet. They're still decent in combat, especially against most smaller targets. Their autocannons can take on most frigates with ease, and even cruisers will feel a bit of a burn over time. The personal defense cannons also make them strong versus strikecraft and missiles, making them very hard to take out without some heavy firepower. The abilities are obviously colonize, allowing you to take planets with increased amounts of free logistics slots, increase the reload speed of nearby allied ships and structures, increase trade capacity, and call a temporary armistice to prevent any ships from firing a shot for a short time. The Dunov battlecruiser is actually very similar to the Akan, but picks up a few more weapons and has a unique set of abilities. It gains a heavy missile launcher and a squad of strikecraft, making it more effective versus small and large threats, so an all-around strong battler. The abilities allow it to restore the shields of nearby allied ships, drain the shields and antimatter of hostiles, and slow enemies in an area. Overcharge increases the power of all of these abilities, making it a real powerhouse of utility. The Sova carrier is the carrier capital ship. Remember when I said the cruiser can eventually be replaced? This is what buy. Now sure, it's a lot more expensive, but it also brings a lot more value to the table. It comes with some light weaponry, so it can battle most frigates without the help of strikecraft. Alongside this, it has a staggering 9 personal defense cannons, making it almost totally immune to enemy missiles and strikecraft. And it of course comes with its own 2 squads of strikecraft, making it an all-round destroyer of smaller ships. It can deploy missile battery for added support, increase the build speed of nearby factories and orbitals, gain the ability to build corvettes, and rapidly build several squads of strikecraft. And lastly, the Marza Dreadnought. This is a very specialized planet destroyer capital ship. It does actually come with some non-planet focused weapons, but it's mainly used for planets and large threats, with no real solution for smaller crafts. It can deal decent damage to other fleets, but of course the main focus here should obviously be the planet. It has a couple of abilities for dealing with hostile ships, allowing it to deal area damage, increase the damage of its missiles for a short time, and launch a sustained barrage of missiles in an area, dealing massive damage throughout. For planets, it has its planetary bombs, as well as its raised planet ability, dealing massive burst damage to the target planets. And lastly, we need to talk about the sub-faction playstyles and their unique items and abilities. The Enclave are much more defense focused, and this carries across into every aspect of their faction. Their unique Home Guard command center toughens nearby ships, and their unique research varies in how they do it, but they all help them keep control of what they already have, making them very hard to invade. Their Titan is the Enclave. Now, while this may be a defense-focused support ship, it's still a Titan, so has a massive amount of firepower it can sling at enemies at will. Off the bat, it has a massive amount of medium and personal defense cannons, making it a terror for smaller to medium threats in all directions. With a few items, it can pick up some heavy beam and missile weapons, making it now a threat for larger ships too, essentially making it a jack of all trades, and a bit of a one-ship fleet as it were. Its abilities allow it to prevent hostile ships from using abilities, increase its own damage and repair rate, restore shields of itself and nearby allies, as well as make nearby ships invulnerable for a short time, and all these abilities only become more powerful if used inside of an allied gravity well. We also have the Primary, and these are the complete opposite, opting instead for an approach of all-out offense and squeezing every last drop of value out of every wall they can find themselves in. Their unique Supreme Sense of a Human doctrine increases the damage of nearby ships, and their research allows them to bolster their economy by attacking other empires, and ally with neutral factions and even pirates to further their conquest. Their Titan is the Ragnarok. This comes right out the gate shooting with both barrels and a shed load of firepower. It has multiple Gauss, medium and personal defense cannons, making it devastating to ships large and small right from the start. With item upgrades, it can pick up some missiles as well as its unique railgun. This allows it to fire ridiculously powerful shots that devastate anything they hit, mostly being large ships and structures. Its abilities allow it to fire piercing shots for massive damage in a single target, deal huge damage in an area around an enemy, increase its own damage every time it gets a kill, and use an onboard Nova Lift cannon to devastate a target planet. Speaking of which, they also come with a unique structure, the Nova Lift cannon. This is essentially a smaller Death Star. Once built, it can fire to damage planets in nearby gravity wells, allowing you to really wipe out and take over a hostile planet without much planetary bombing. It's very costly and has a range of about 2 jumps, making it a little bit impractical, but if you can get one up and running, it can accelerate your expansion tenfold. The range can be upgraded with research, but it's hardly a full map threat, so place them wisely. And that's everything you need to know to get started with the tech in Sins of Assault Empire 2. Let me know any questions you have in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Sins of Assault Empire 2 videos, then check out this one, my complete beginner's guide.